Oh, hello there. I didn't see you. I was just catching up with some light reading. Plants, they aren't easy. You can't just throw a seed on the ground and expect an orchid. You have to put a little effort into it. Much like, you could say, a student's knowledge. You have to plant the ideas in their head and tend and nurture them to ensure a hearty growth. Through this original project, I will show you how I've grown and developed throughout this quarter. You might even say blossomed. I'm just oaking with you. Before we start, I'd like to ensure that you have the plant. Do you have the plant, Mrs. Thomas? If not, I can give you a couple seconds to retrieve it. Welcome back. Alright, if you could do me the favor and grab the seed packet, which said Seeds for Success, and sprinkle them all around the pot. See, these seeds represent my goals for this quarter. My main one being to improve my in-class essay writing. Some side ones were to have a more organized intro and to be able to prove my point through my writing. In the next step, you can see the stalk. This stalk represents my growth and how I've grown from the Convince Your Teacher project to the journals. But I will be mainly gaining my evidence from the synthesis essays that we've done, particularly 3. The first one being on the memorials and how to immortalize them. As you can see, the pink was evidence, while the blue was explanations. The pink overshadowed the evidence, but not only did that, the evidence was it was insufficient and unnecessary. It was basically a transition between evidence to evidence in my previous unknowing knowledge of synthesis. You see, I had very much evidence, while I had very limited explanations that did not make sense and didn't further my point, which made it invalid and unhelpful. But there was still some growth. So, I'd like you to remove the leaf and pull up the stalk a little bit, and put the leaf back in so the stalk will stay. In the second synthesis essay, it was our thoughts on college and if it was worth its cost. I agreed with the idea that it was worth its cost. But my choice on explaining this was almost the opposite on my last essay. I overcompensated with my explanations to a point that it almost didn't make sense on what I was saying, and even I was answering that synthesis question or another one about college. But it was still better than last because I did have a fair amount of evidence, but it was supported by explanation, even though an explanation, if we were in the planting world, I would have drowned the plant with too much information. Or, in their case, water. Now again, I'd like you to pull up the stalk a little bit, because there was some growth, and put the leaf back in. And my last essay, or I like to think is my prize daisy of essays, just a little throwback at The Great Gatsby. Not only did I have a very well-synthesized essay, I also had a very well-organized intro that fed into that essay to make it even better. The intro gave my point, my opinion, and how I was going to show that through the essay. That's mainly why I believe it to be my prize daisy. If you notice these synthesis essays, it's very similar to photosynthesis in the way that I took your advice from each one in the classes that we learned in my peers and turned them into more knowledge. Like a plant would take sunlight and turn it into nourishment. Lastly, we have the flower. The flower represents me, reaching out like each petal to gain more knowledge and to soak up the attention of the sun, or in our case, you. I want to gain and learn from what I've done and put it into another level so I can gain even more knowledge. If you notice at the top of the flower, there are little circular dots. They're very similar to the seeds that we planted. That is no coincidence. Those, once this flower or quarter is over, will then transfer into the next quarter to make an even more beautiful flower. And in a way, make my knowledge expand. I hope you enjoyed this, Mrs. Thomas, and I hope you don't think it's just a heap of manure. Thank you, and have a good night.